Welcome to the Super Facts Show on the Super Facts Network. I just appreciate you listening. So I'm not going to ask you to follow me on Instagram at Mark Waldo Ward. I'm not going to ask you to rate and review the show. I'm not going to ask you to subscribe to it. Thank you for your time.
What up, world? It's your boy Mark Waldo Ward, Super Facts Show, Super Facts Network. Today we got with us Bally Sports NBA insider and host of the Scoop B Radio podcast, Brandon Scoop B Robinson. How you doing today, sir?
Man, I'm blessed. How are you?
I'm doing good. My show is mostly rap. I always love a chance to talk sports. I'm a humongous NBA fan. I was telling you how, a lot of people would say, unfortunately, I've been a fan of the Bullets and Wizards since that they won a title the year I was born, and I think they won. Now I don't even think they have won a playoff series since I've been watching basketball. But be that as it may, I love some NBA. So let's go.
And hey, I love the fact that you got that bad boy jersey on. It's taking me all the way back to the late 90s. You definitely came, we're doing a mismatch between hip hop and basketball, but it's all in one. They all encompass a lot of different things at the same time.
I'd say I probably fell in love with both of them about the same time. Like growing up in PG County, I can't think of a time we was at the basketball court that at least the radio wasn't on if somebody wasn't playing a tape.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Basketball is, I think hip hop is the soundtrack to basketball, just like I think our parents, jazz was the soundtrack to their parents and our parents' age group too when they watched baseball.
I never thought of that, but yeah, I could definitely see that. Are you a big jazz fan?
I actually played in a classical band as a kid that traveled the East Coast. I played like in elementary school in a jazz band. So, I definitely have an appreciation for Charlie Parker, Dizzy Gillespie. My uncle was pretty cool with Dizzy Gillespie. Our family owned a business in Harlem, a shoe store. My late uncle was a big jazz fan, and Dizzy would sometimes just sit in the store and just have conversation with my uncle. And I remember getting his autograph and just enjoying the vibe, being in the shoe store with him. So I like jazz. I played the alto saxophone, and yeah, music has always been a part of my life in some way.
Who are some of your, since we got into the music, who are some of your favorite rappers?
Jay-Z is my favorite rapper. For me.
Favorite, or you think he's the best? Because like Cameron's my favorite rapper, but I won't say he's the best,
Cameron is in my list of favorite rappers. And I go far as Horse and Carriage. Dipset to me, I think Dipset for my age bracket, just from a cultural perspective and from a nuanced style perspective, I think has a Wu-Tang feel as far as just how they lead and their style of dress and more. Just this difference between Harlem and Staten Island, it's just different there. But as far as your question about Jay-Z, greatest of all time, I think that's such a difficult question to answer. Just like I think a lot of times people look at people look at Michael Jordan and LeBron and try to compare. I don't think they're comparable. I think Michael and Kobe are more comparable. So when you're looking at Jay, I think Jay's impact is different than a lot of other rappers because he literally created a 401k plan for rappers because he thought outside of just rhyming. He looked at it from a business perspective and attacking corporate America with branding. So
I guess when he paid the industry back for what they did to the Cold Crush, he spread the wealth down, huh?
He definitely did. I think when you look at Jay-Z, when you look at wrestling, I think Jay-Z is to The Rock. What I think everybody looks at Hulk Hogan as a GOAT, but The Rock took it a step further.
Right.
So I feel like there is a Rock esque feel that Jay-Z has to hip hop. I'm not sure who the Hulk Hogan would be. I really do think that lyrically there are guys that are on Jay's level. I think Nas has always been on Jay's level. Quiet as it's kept, I think mainstream you're seeing it. I always thought Jadakiss was on Jay's level. I think with the versus battles, people see why. I think their money was just different. Their deals were just different. And Jada's just a lyricist. But, when I look at Jay, I think he's definitely in the conversation. There's other guys that are up there, though.
I gotta go with Scarface myself.
Scarface is up there. To me, Black Thought is up there.
Yes, sir. Most definitely.
Black Thought has always been up there. Nas is up there. I think Chuck D is up there.
Yeah.
I just think Chuck D is more of a political activist. I think Chuck D's place in hip hop is what Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's place is in basketball.
Solid. I see that. Yeah.
A hooper that's a humanitarian.
Yeah, definitely. You know, you just brought up Jordan, Kobe, and LeBron, and I always catch flack for my take on well, as far as the Jordan LeBron thing, I look at it like it's like you said, it's kind of hard to measure who's greater because it depends on how you define greatness. If I was running a franchise, I'd rather have Michael Jordan on my team. If I was a player, I'd rather have LeBron as my teammate.
Are you looking for me to comment on that?
Yeah, if you want to, I was gonna give you a chance.
So here's the thing. When Michael first came into the league, people think that there was this level of impact right away that was like LeBron's when he started on the Cavaliers in 2003. Not the case. You still had to get through the Pistons. You still had to get through the Doug Collins era of coaching and then learn from that. And then in came Tex Winter and Phil Jackson. When I look at LeBron, I really think Paul Silas was the coach for him coming into the league after playing in high school under, legendary Akron, Ohio coach Drew Joyce over at St. Vincent St. Mary's High School, where LeBron went. When I look at LeBron and I look at his place in basketball, I never really looked at him as just a premier swingman. I really looked at him as more Magic and Oscar Robertson than he was a Michael or Kobe type. But here's the thing. I look at your office, and there's so many different parts of your office, so to speak, that make your office unique. I see the bobbleheads. I see stuff from Star Wars. It seems like glasses. I see the Iceman George Gervin poster in the back. I see a Run DMC bumper sticker. It's what makes you you. Comparatively, when you look at LeBron James, he's an eclectic piece of art in the same breath. As much as I talk about Magic and as much as I talk about Oscar Robertson, there's parts of his game that remind me of Charles Barkley in Phoenix.
Yeah, I can see that.
Playing alongside Kevin Johnson and Dan Marley. There's parts of his game that remind me of Penny Hardaway. There's parts of his game that remind me of Grant Hill. There's parts of his game that remind me of Tracy McGrady.
Alvin Robertson too.
Who'd you say?
Alvin Robertson.
I can see that.
Especially younger LeBron when he was getting all them steals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're right. I think there's so many. There is LeBron is a mosaic of different pieces. So that to just label him, you got to put him against Michael. It's not fair because their skill sets are different. I'll take it a step further. When you look at politics, right? For years, you had the Republican, you had the Democrat. They were just staunch on what they did in their base. But I'm willing to argue when Barack Obama ran for office, there was a Jordan appeal in this vein. You took advantage of social media. And when I say take advantage, I'm saying you utilized, not right. Like you abused. You looked at email lists, you utilized text messaging, you utilized the young vote, you utilized hip hop. Like you saw politicians go to local churches and things of that sort. Like they made their runs, but like did he vote or die? And then all those different factors, they just added to that pot of goulash over time. Obama was the first in my mind. And I think it's been difficult for many politicians to replicate it since. When I look at Jordan, yeah, Magic Johnson wore the Converse weapons. Yeah, Isaiah wore the Asics. Yeah, the Chuck Taylor was a shoe that people knew. And for me personally, I have flat feet, so they'd be very uncomfortable for my ankles if I wore them. But when you look at Michael Jordan, he literally was a Beatle. He was a rock star. He just revolutionized the footwear game. He almost signed with Adidas. He almost signed with Converse. I feel like when you're the first, everybody who comes after you still has to take a piece of what you did and make it their own. And so when I look at Obama and how he ran for office, utilizing social media is the standard. I'm not here to talk about Republican or Democrat, but we do know that Donald Trump definitely utilized Twitter to his advantage. And even in other aspects of life, now Twitter is the gold standard for news, right? So every politician that runs, whether it's Obama, whether it's Trump, folks have to kind of weave in between young people, social media, connecting to just all of the different tapestries of things. It's not just connecting to our parents' generation. That being said, when I look at Jordan, without Jordan's imprint in the sneaker game, LeBron would have never have gotten that $90 million contract with Nike. I don't care what anybody says. Sneakers are the focal point of every major superstar and their brand. You still saw it even with Zion Williamson. He's in and out of lineups in New Orleans, but the Jordan brand had to cough up that money to make sure that things were utilized the way that they were. So I don't want to ramble, but I still do think that Jordan's impact is still felt to this day.
Agreed. Just not as an owner. But the thing I want to say to people get on me all the time is I think Tim Duncan was a much better player than Kobe Bryant. I think he was by far the best player of that era. And it seems to me all the statistics will bear it out, the results. But
listen, I didn't like oatmeal and asparagus until I got older. Same with salmon. It was cool to go to the fast food restaurants and you realize that wasn't really good for you. Your parents told you it was bad for you, but until you really just sat down and you got older and you realized, or your body wasn't agreeing with you after college, you're like, yeah, we need those omega-5s. We need the fatty acids. We need, 3 to 5 vegetables a day. That's what Tim Duncan is. He's not fast food. He's soul food. He's the things that you need. Crossover dribble is cool. I like Allen Iverson. Allen Iverson was ahead of its time, but Tim Duncan has more rings than him. Tim Duncan and the Spurs were a well-oiled machine that was competing with the Lakers, and really had to reclaim their place over time, but still prove why the YMCA team with 35-year-olds can still run those young guys that think they can beat the 35-year-olds out of the gym. Consistent. But that fast cars and controversy sells. So Tim Duncan just played in an era where Michael Jordan did extend the baton to many people, including Kobe, Shaq, Duncan. And in between that, Allen Iverson ushered the cornrows, the tattoos, and a generation of players who were unafraid to be themselves.
Yeah, I totally agree. Do you think that the Spurs have been the best run franchise you've seen?
They were up there with the Miami Heat.
See, I
they
put
were
the
up
Heat
there
over
with the
them.
Dallas Mavericks.
Say it again.
And they were up there with the Dallas Mavericks.
Yeah. Apparently Dallas got some issues behind the scenes a little bit, but I agree with you about the Heat. The Spurs are well run, but it's easy to run a team when you get David Robinson and Tim Duncan. And
yeah, but you kind of nailed it on the head, right? So the Spurs, like the Sacramento Kings, were ahead of the curve on the European front.
Yes, sir.
And their scouting and their basketball intelligence. That's what makes the Spurs special. Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, Bino Udrih, some of the other lesser known guys, Boris Diaw. Those gentlemen were the pillars of basketball post Vlade Divac and Drazen Petrovic's entrance to the NBA in the 90s. Sacramento Kings were also ahead of curve because you drafted Peja Stojakovic, you drafted Hedo Turkoglu. And that style of play alongside Chris Webber, who you know of well, being from the DMV, as well as Jason Williams and or Mike Bibby are what make them them. And so I think the Spurs, from their coaching perspective, as well as their basketball intelligence and their scouting, is great. But I think the Heat are in that good position because of Pat Riley, but also just over time how they've been able to rebuild. I mean, I thought it was a classy move that they retired Michael Jordan's 23 jersey. I thought that, the fact that they had Tim Hardaway, Alonzo Mourning in the 90s, and they went toe-to-toe with the Knicks. It was exciting basketball. But when they drafted that guy out of Marquette by the name of Dwayne Wade, and then they brought Shaq in, they won that championship, and then they found a way to kind of rebrand themselves by bringing in Bosh and LeBron, and they won a couple more championships. I just think Pat Riley has good relationships and has been able to, retool people over time. I mean, you even look at Jimmy Butler, like he came in and, they went to the championship in the bubble and they didn't win against the Lakers. But I just think the Heat have always had good relationships with people. And I think the Mavs, it starts with their owner, Mark Cuban, heck of a guy. And they got that championship in 2011 and were very underestimated too.
Yeah, agree. Dirk was killing them. They thought he couldn't do it, but yeah, he showed them. What's the your takeaways from this year so far in the NBA?
A lot, and a lot of things that don't have anything to do with basketball. But and I think because there's a lot of things that don't have anything to do with basketball, the attention shies away from the Portland Trailblazers, who've been playing remarkable basketball with Anthony Simon and as well as Damian Lillard under head coach Chauncey Billups. I think the Suns have been doing well. The Spurs have been doing well. And then you look at the Eastern Conference. Well, before I go to the Eastern Conference, you look at the Pelicans. Pelicans have been playing decent basketball. And then, you look at the Eastern Conference, Cleveland Cavaliers are consistent, and bringing Donovan Mitchell in, I think was the cheat code, was literally the human cheat code.
Do you think they got championship potential?
Yeah. I mean, people were jokingly talking about it last year, but I think bringing Donovan Mitchell in, I think Mitchell has and then other guys like Isaac Okoro, you got Kevin Love, who I think has been playing revitalized basketball and stuck it out. I like their coach. I think the Cavs definitely have a good product on the floor.
Do you think they need to make a move first?
I think it's still very early. I think it's still very early. I don't think I'm of the belief you can't really look at you can't really judge a basketball team until you get to like 15, 20 games.
I mean, I agree, but I kind of perceive the Cavs as having a little bit of a issue with small forward.
I'm listening.
I mean, I just think they need to upgrade that position because Okoro got potential for the future, but is he ready to go all the way to the finals?
Yeah, because here's the thing. So I see what you're saying.
Definitely not Kavaris LeVert. Excuse me.
Say that again.
I said definitely not Kavaris LeVert at the small forward. That ain't gonna work.
See, I like Karis LeVert, but I
do too, just not as a starting small forward. See,
I think Donovan Mitchell should be the starting small forward, and I think Karis should be at the 2. When I look at it, because I remember they played that game against the Celtics recently, and they scored 81 together. I'm of the belief that their scoring is always going to be good. They got young bodies. That's why I personally think that if LeBron James, nothing I've heard, just an observation, LeBron James has 1 year left on that deal. He should look at the Cavs because they've retooled. And I think that when you look at the Cavs, even with getting rid of the guys that they got rid of, Colin Sexton as well as Larry Markkinen, they're shining bright in Utah. I think sometimes there's such a thing as having too much of something. And I think Danny Ainge and the almost said Danny Ainge and the Celtics, Danny Ainge and the Utah Jazz benefited from having Cleveland's talent, and everybody got what they needed.
Yeah, I mean, some things are a win-win. Everything ain't. You took advantage of the situation.
Mm-hmm. And that's the team I actually left out. Utah's been pretty exciting to watch. But I tell you that I think it takes 15 to 20 games to really, assess what's going on, because you talk about your DMV roots. Look at the Washington Wizards last year. They started out hot. So did the Chicago Bulls. And look what happened.
I mean, I just don't think the Wizards had it. But I mean, in the Bulls' defense, it was probably an injury thing more than anything. I wonder what that, because I remember, man, those guards was playing some defense at the first half of the season last year. I wish that roster got a chance to, go for it as it was instead of being so limited in the playoffs. But I think their window's probably closed. But I mean, shit can always surprise you, like you said, 15 to 20 games.
Yeah, I think you're right on that.
So, what's your opinion on the whole Nets situation? The first thing before we get into it, though, the Ime Udoka stuff. I mean, I ain't gonna ask if you got any insight because whoever's behind closed doors. But do you think it's proper for New Jersey to hire them?
That's a loaded question. The best way that I can answer it is this: the Nets lack defensive intensity within the first almost 10 games. That being said, you see the product of what Boston did last season.
Yes.
Ime Udoka is a defensive taskmaster. And I think what would help Brooklyn with Udoka is his ability to relate to players. I've spent time with the Boston Celtics last season. Robert Williams III told me the story during the finals. He said their turnaround during the course of the season was really about Udoka kind of just, being real with players. He said one time he came in the locker room and he said to the guys, "Yo, I'm tired of y'all MFers." He goes, "I'm tired of having to go to the trainers to find out what the F is wrong with y'all." He said, "Are you guys gonna play basketball or y'all gonna BS?" He goes, "What's going on? How do we make this right?" And that level of candor is something that really stuck with that Celtics team. And I know that he's not that far removed from their age bracket. He's young enough to have been to have been a player on NBA 2K when they were young, and they know of him coming from the Popovich system, and also spending time as an assistant with the Philadelphia 76ers. But in answer to your question, I'm told that
I phrased that poorly. I'm sorry. When I meant proper, we don't know what he did or anything or any of that. I'm talking about just the level of scrutiny that would come with it. Given their situation
because of what happened in Boston.
I
mean, here's what I'll say. There are a lot of things that people are saying about the issue. What I do know is that there are a lot of things that there are rumors, and then there are the things that actually happened. I'm not the judge or the jury, but I do know that the Nets have done their proper due diligence, from what I'm told, to vet out that process and to find out what really happened. And I also do know that when you are the leader of a team, you have to move appropriately. So with that being said, some people feel as though he shouldn't be hired. Some people don't see it being a problem. You have conversations with people across the league. Some people have shared that Udoka situation is commonplace for some coaches, and that the way that all of that information was disseminated was very different than in other cases. I know a lot, and I want to keep it as simple as possible.
I can kind of read between the lines on that one, though, about the information dissemination.
Right. But what I will say is that from a basketball perspective, defensively, we've seen what he brings to the table. And I know that the other portion of it that I find interesting is that group of players in Brooklyn kind of need the kind of coach that I was describing, that guys on the Celtics were describing to me that Udoka was in Boston.
But I mean, there's really no Robert Williams to come off the bench. Like if he can do it with this group, then he's going to be all solidified all time as like a defensive mastermind.
Here's where I think that this Nets team and this Celtics team have some similarities. You ready?
Yes, sir.
They counted the Celtics out last season.
True indeed. I remember. Should they trade Brown and Tatum? Can Brown and Tatum stay together? I remember all those.
They counted the Nets out this season because of all the controversy this past summer.
Yeah. I mean, true indeed.
I don't know about you. I like to be underestimated.
Agreed. Definitely.
if they don't see you coming, then you come swinging, then what? So we'll see. It's very early. I think that I know that the Nets play at the time of this recording. The Nets flew to Washington D.C. As they left at 3:00 in the New York area. Flew out to D.C. and that was 3:00 on Thursday. And I'm told that Udoka will meet the team in during their road trip. They play the Wizards and then they play the Charlotte Hornets. And there's a level of acclimation that's going to have to take place. But assuming that all things work out, he will be the next head coach. Currently, Jacques Vaughn is the interim head coach of that team, and we'll see where that goes. But they also got to get healthy. Ben Simmons is dealing with some lingering knee issues. TJ Warren is on the mend, and then Seth Curry has been in and out and questionable for certain games. So the health is the most important thing. The defensive scheme is other thing. And I just think sometimes at a point you need a new voice, and it seems like he may be the direction they're going in.
How much of a distraction, like you get to go in locker rooms, and they always talk about things being a distraction, but how much does that really affect the athlete? Like the media circus or the media attention that Kyrie Irving's generating, how much do you think that affects the other players?
I can't speak for all players. I think it's a case-by-case basis. I do think that winning drowns noise, and it also depends on how much these guys are professionals. Kevin Durant has won multiple championships with the Warriors. They've been in the league for a while. Ben Simmons is a multiple-time All-Star. Kyrie is a multiple-time All-Star. He's won championships as well. I think I can't speak to how it affects everybody, but I'd imagine that if you follow this team, you'd hope to see more basketball and less distractions, and that's a whole nother story for a different day. But
yeah,
I think they're just a good team on paper. How do you extract that into wins?
Yeah, I guess you get a good coach, right?
Yeah.
How did you get started in how did you work your way up to being in NBA locker rooms? A lot of people want that. I know a lot of people from my high school. I graduated in '96, went to college for journalism, and I ain't seen none of them up in no NBA locker. I mean, they found other careers, but
of course,
I mean, other journalism careers. It was worthwhile. I ain't trying to say don't be a journalist, but
right.
Whatever the number is of people that want to be sports journalists, very few of them are actually going to get to cover an NBA team.
Well, I'm blessed. I'll say that for me, I've always had an interest in basketball, and it started grassroots in New York City. I split time growing up between Northern New Jersey and New York City. I grew up in both.
Hey, I gotta interrupt you. I'm sorry. Have you ever seen Lloyd Daniels play?
No, but I've heard stories of Lloyd Daniels and his playing for sure. Have you seen him?
Yeah, man, it was a guy across the street from me that played for West Virginia. He's like a Mr. Football in Ohio, but he hurt his knee and then he played basketball his last 2 years at West Virginia. And he was always like in pro summer leagues and things like that. And he played in the CBA for a year, and he came back with his tape of the All-Star game. And this man, Lloyd Daniels, was making 3-pointers. I can't remember if I'm pretty sure he was right-handed, but whatever the case, he won the 3-point contest in the last round shooting with his offhand. And I just never seen nothing like that. Like if the whole first 2 rounds he was using his right hand, the championship round he used his left hand, and he only missed 2.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So like that really stuck out in my mind.
That's deep. Yeah,
I never saw him play before he got shot, but I've heard mad stories. I mean, I saw him on the Spurs with Tarkanian and everything.
Oh yeah, man. He's a legend. New York City basketball at large is definitely a place where you see some of the best, and a lot of people have the opportunity to make it to the next level. The other thing is a lot of people are national stories and national treasures even before they hit college and the NBA. It's literally Hollywood before you get there. And for me growing up, I had an uncle who was a commissioner of a basketball league called Citywide, which was in Harlem, and a lot of people that were from the city came out of Citywide, whether it's Stephon Marbury, Bernard King, Rod Strickland, Kenny Anderson, Jason Williams, a myriad of guys. They all played in Citywide and all had a relationship with my uncle. And what ended up happening was I used to go to work with him on days off from school and just watch him and his interaction, and that kind of that sparked my interest into basketball. I had a cousin who was a ball boy for the Knicks in the 70s when Clyde Frazier was there and Willis Reed. And, that was kind of my entry point into basketball. On the fashion and just the lifestyle side, on my mom's side, my family, owned and operated a sneaker store in Harlem. We were the only Black-owned athlete's foot in New York State.
Really?
On 135th Street in Harlem. Yeah. So like we used to do sneaker releases with like Hakeem Olajuwon, Dominique Wilkins, Spud Webb. They would promo their Brooks sneakers. And what happened was I would just see that. My first job ever was ringing a cash register when I was a kid. So we owned that sneaker store, and then up the street we owned a men's shoe store called Men's Walker, and that's where my uncle would see guys like Dizzy Gillespie. He would come in there. Paul Mooney and my uncle would crack jokes in the store often. The late comedian Paul Mooney, like a lot of people would just come in there and would see my family and had a relationship with them, and that was Harlem. So for me, just being around that as a kid, that kind of set the motion. And what ended up happening was one of my mom's friends told her about an audition for a radio station that was in New Jersey called Oswald Radio in Jersey City, right across the river from Manhattan. And they were looking for kids reporters or kids personalities to be at this radio station called 1660 AM Oswald Radio. Changed my life. I auditioned in Chelsea Pier in Manhattan, killed the first audition. Second audition was at Dangerfield's Comedy Club in Manhattan, killed that. And I was one of the kids selected. And the first thing that we did, the first activation we did it with the Crash Dummies. Do you remember the Crash Dummies?
You mean like the things that would be in the car on those commercials?
Yeah, they would hit their head on the steering wheel and
most certainly.
So like in the studio, we had like the Crash Dummies would like come out the office and we would like dance with them.
What?
Yeah.
They was like automated like Chuck E. Cheese, or was people wearing a suit?
It was people wearing the suit.
Oh, okay. Okay, I got you. That's why I was like, what?
When you said automated like Chuck E. Cheese, I knew exactly what you were talking about. Yeah. So what happened was, we did those commercials, and then around the same time, the Nets called that station because they were rebranding. This was when Keith Van Horn was on that team. They did the logo. John Calipari was the head coach. They were looking for a kid to host a radio show, and they interviewed me. I was 12 at the time. I came in there. They liked me, and I got the job hosting a show called Net Slim and Planet. So like this is when they were in New Jersey. I would come to games, interview players in the locker room, and really just kind of engross myself into a culture that I already knew.
This was when Calipari was the coach?
Yeah.
So how long did it take you to realize that he shouldn't have drafted Kerry Kittles?
I mean, he went 8th, Kobe went 13th. So they must have known something about Kerry Kittles, but you're right. That 96 draft had a lot of gems on that team. But imagine if Kobe was on that Nets team, he would have had the chance to, Jason Kidd would have had the chance to be his teammate when the Nets went to the finals those back-to-back years, but it wasn't in the cards. Charlotte Hornets drafted Kobe with the 13th pick. He was traded to LA for Vlade Divac.
All because he was from high school. Like,
yeah,
not just in sports, but do you see how people get caught into a way of thinking that just becomes so counterproductive because they're not open to new things? Like you were talking about Sacramento and San Antonio with the Europeans, but I mean they were out there for everybody. I mean there was even proof of concept, like you said, Petrovic, Sarunas Marciulionis, all them. But it took like 20 years before you got I don't know if the majority of the players in the All-Star game were from Europe, but they damn sure were in their majority foreign in the MVP ballot in last year.
Oh yeah, definitely. And Jokic, of course, got the MVP award back to back. Serbian legend Jokic, and you look at just over time, kind of just who those legends were before him. When I look at Jokic, I see so many iterations of different people who came before him. Like I remember when Arvydas Sabonis came into the league at 36. Like his playmaking ability reminds me of Arvydas, but his shooting reminds me of a myriad of other people, his ability to get to the basket. Like, he's literally like the quarterback on that team. I remember when Golden State had Run TMC, Tom Tolbert was on that team, and he was the point center. There's so many different bodies of that there's
Tom
so many
Tolbert.
different people. You remember Tom Tolbert?
Yeah, he was him and Jeb Buechler won like some wild volleyball championship. I just accidentally happened to catch turn on Wild World of Sports.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, Tom Tolbert was that work. So, you know, it's I just think we're in a space right now where there's just so much talent out there.
Word. That's a good segue, because you, my friend, are a super talented interviewer beyond just sports. I greatly enjoyed that Jesse Jackson interview, and I'm curious, like, oh, most definitely. Like, I never would have known Jesse Jackson played basketball with Marvin Gaye. I knew Marvin Gaye tried to be a wide receiver back in the day, but I didn't know all that. I don't want to give away, you know, your whole. I'm gonna make sure I post it when I post this on Dirty Glove Bastard. But what was your biggest takeaway from that? That must have been, you know, something pretty special.
Yeah, definitely. Reverend Jackson has always been gracious with me over the years with his time. I met Reverend Jackson back in 2014 at a Major League Baseball Diversity Summit in New York. And he gave me his time. We had a one-on-one interview. And then over time, like, I'd bump into him at Yankee Stadium. I remember the NBA had, when the All-Star game in 2015 was in New York. I won't forget it. They had all the different festivities there, and I went to the hotel for the day. And I remember, like, the mothers of professional basketball players had a function. My mother was actually invited as one of the guests to sit during the brunch. And then I remember, like, bringing my little cousin to and he was young at the time, but he was with me, and I was working, and Reverend Jackson was there, and my cousin is special needs, and he walked up to just Reverend Jackson and hugged him and wanted to take pictures with Reverend Jackson. Just over time, Reverend Jackson has just been, you know, a part of the process of just my life professionally. And, you know, to kind of sit down with him on my podcast, Scoop B Radio, we garner 15 million streams annually. You know, it was pretty cool to talk about basketball, to talk about Rihanna and the Super Bowl, talk about Kanye West, talk about Kyrie Irving, talk about playing against Marvin Gaye, playing basketball, and a million of other things. And it definitely was refreshing to kind of have those kind of conversations with him.
How much difference is there to what you can do when you're doing the Scoop B Radio podcast as opposed to your role as a Bally Sports NBA insider?
Similar but different. Scoop B Radio was started in 2016, literally out of old tapes that me and my business partner created, and we wanted to create a time capsule. And we use old interviews. I had interviews with, you know, Dikembe Mutombo, Kendall Gill, Jason Williams, Scott Burrell, a myriad of other people. And what ended up happening was, I was working at CBS at the time, and I looked at the formula at CBS and recreated that formula with Scoop B Radio. We ended up going viral off of a current interview that we did. Somebody wanted to come on the pod, and then we bought the domain name, and we really just distributed. I went through my phone and went through my Rolodex and just, you know, went through my relationships and just started recording on the phone and just audio form. And what ended up happening was we saw the success that it had. And what ended up happening was we kind of took a hiatus from Scoop B Radio just because of my role with Bally Sports and just being so busy. And we really wanted to kind of make sure that we were still giving Scoop B Radio the attention that it needed. And it's just conversation and interviews. You know, we had Jesse Jackson on recently. We're basically closing out the year with one interview a month. So we have a big interview slated for the month of November, and then another big interview slated for the month of December. But the difference, I think, with Scoop B Radio and my role with Bally Sports is they're both video now. Scoop B Radio offers you the opportunity to see it in video form and listen to it in audio form if you're in your office cubicle, or you're working, or you're in a car, or you're on a plane, on a train. I think there's some similarities. I think the difference with it is Bally is a national platform. I'm at a national place. but I still want to give credit where credit is due and pay homage and utilize the extension of my brand with Scoopy Radio. So we had a billboard in Times Square that I released recently, and there's some other things that are moving in that direction with Scoopy Radio as well. But I would just say that there's some similarities. I think the difference is I'm not necessarily breaking news on Scoopy Radio, but Bally Sports still has Scoopy, and Scoopy Radio has Scoopy. So we put our heart in everything that we do.
How much behind the scenes preparation goes into a day of being an NBA insider for Bally Sports? Because, we were talking about the journalists, everybody wants to be, put a microphone in Michael Jordan's face, but I don't know if they necessarily want to do all the work that goes to get to that point. And not even, I'm talking about like after you got hired, like what it takes on a day-to-day basis. Because I've seen like some Wizards beat writers, and I was just amazed at how much time they put into it.
Every day is different. I think it just depends on what's going on that day, whether I'm on the road. I mean, on a typical day like today, my day starts at about 9-10 o'clock. I'm replying to messages. I'm emailing. I'm making phone calls. I'm following up. I'm arranging interviews. I'm setting up various things. I'm writing. I'm meeting with my producers about stuff. I'm talking to our boss about different things. I'm communicating with my publicist, my own personal publicist, Brianna Gatlin over at Swing PR.
Shout out Brianna.
Shout out Brianna. I'm walking my dog 2 times a day. I'm on the phone doing that. It's just a myriad of things. I'm communicating with my stylist. I'm just doing a lot of different things. The cool thing is either you're working from home or you're working at a home studio or you're in an arena. Like every day is different. I don't have to necessarily go to every game. Sometimes I'm doing stuff on the phone. You're checking in with players. You're checking in with agents. You're checking in with family members. You're checking in with this person, that person. Like every day is there. Every situation is different. Every day is different. It's nuanced, but I'm doing what I love.
Well, with that being said, what would be what would you say is more busier, the trade deadline, the draft, or the first day of free agency for you personally?
That's a good question.
I know the draft probably depends year to year. Like I'm sure it'll be humongously busy this year.
The trade deadline and free agency are the 2 busiest days. The draft day, and days leading up to the draft are busy, but it's different busy. It's more interviewing and making things happen in that regard. Trade deadline, leading up to the trade deadline, you're just on the phone. You're texting, you're following up. It's the trade deadline and free agency are very similar, but it's interesting because like this summer, after the free agency was Kyrie opting in, KD requesting a trade soon thereafter, and it felt like free agency or trade deadline because you're running the phones to see what's going on. So like this summer was a lot different than other summers because after the free agency period, you kind of have off time.
Right. So in your time covering the NBA, who would you say, to your knowledge, just from your perception, is out of players is or was the biggest rap fan?
Jalen Rose.
Jalen Rose. Oh, I got Jalen. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I was about to forget something. You saw the Jalen Rose ranked as top 5 handles all time in the NBA, and he had Isaiah Thomas #1. I would have to say, I see it, but I'd have to disagree. I put Kyrie over Isaiah.
I feel like Kyrie, Isaiah, Tim Hardaway are all in that same, and Allen Iverson. I feel like I don't know that I'm comparing them. I'm just enjoying their brilliance overall. Iverson was in my lifetime. Isaiah is my OG, and so I've watched YouTube. Kyrie is someone I know well, and I know his godfather as well. So I feel like Rod was supremely underrated as a ball handler, and I think you're seeing flashes of like when you see Kenny Anderson and you see Rod, you appreciate what guys like Kai have become. But I think and I think Marbury is in that conversation too.
I mean, with Iverson and Marbury, some of that's got to be athleticism. You know, like just pure handle. I mean, I should have put Rod up there too, but I mean, you have to have Isaiah to get to Kyrie. So to me, it's a no-brainer that Kyrie would have more moves because, you know, I mean, first off, he gets to play without hand checking, but he gets to build on everything that Isaiah Thomas did.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so he can watch and do everything Isaiah Thomas did and then learn more stuff. And I mean, especially with Rod Strickland as his godfather, his dribbling drills must have been insane when he was a kid.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Do you think? I'm curious your opinion on a couple people if they should make the Hall of Fame or not. Do you think Rod Strickland should be a Hall of Famer?
Yeah, but I don't know that he will be. I think he's a pillar that has paved the way for other people. But as far as a Hall of Famer, I also think that Hall of Fame has more to do with just your basketball career in the NBA. I think on every level he's been impactful. High school, he was one of the first to go to that I remember in the NBA to leave the Bronx and go to Oak Hill Academy. Then you look at what he did at DePaul. He was a New York City ball player going outside of New York and playing at DePaul, and then going to the NBA and did what he did. And I think outside of the NBA as an assistant coach with Memphis and then Kentucky, I think he's just consistently been a pillar. I'm not sure if that's enough to be a Hall of Famer, but I think his contributions to basketball have just been so much so that he's deserving of every accolade that he's getting now.
Man, I used to see this dude with, I ain't gonna say he don't got no jumper or he can't jump high, but compared to other NBA players, maybe not as much, be able to go the hole whenever he wanted. And this dude would throw up hot dogs like during the game, eat a hot dog, throw it up and go play. Like that shit was just incredible. How about Gilbert Arenas? I mean, I'm not gonna put words in your mouth. I feel like he definitely deserves it, but I don't know if he'll get it. What do you think?
I think some of the things that have been off court, you wonder. But I've seen people overcome other things. So I think he has the stats for sure.
A lot of game winners too. Like there was like a 2-3 year stretch, man. Like wasn't nobody doing it like that. How about Caron Butler?
No.
Even though the NBA is kind of lax with it, because you know it seems like it's easier to get in the NBA Hall of Fame than other ones.
Mm-hmm.
No Caron Butler.
I don't see it. No.
You think it's close?
No.
How about Lamar Odom?
No. I don't think they're going to give it to him. I think he's a trendsetter. I don't know that they're going to give it to him.
How about Metta World Peace?
I don't think they're going to give it to him. I don't
really?
See why he should get it.
I think he will with the mental health and the what they get 2 rings or 1 ring. I forgot.
One.
How about you personally? Would you put him in?
Yes.
I don't think people remember that Malice in the Palace year. If that hadn't happened, that Pacers team was insane. And he might be, I don't know how to say this right, because Sky Pippen's up there too, but there was like a 2 or 3 year stretch where I don't know anybody had mastered the combination of offense and defense at such a high level. Like usually something would have to suffer. You know, like when Scottie Pippen was guarding Magic in them finals, he wasn't scoring as much, you know, like Ron Artest just had another gear on defense. Or Metta World Peace, excuse me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man.
So before we finish up, what are you looking forward to? What do you got coming up?
Scoopy Radio. The next episode of Scoopy Radio will drop the week of November 14th. Subscribe to Scoopy Radio on all platforms for that. And then Bally Sports. Lock in. We got a couple special interviews dropping over the next couple of weeks. That you definitely should be locked into that. BallySports.com is where you can check all of that stuff out. But yeah, man, Bally Sports is in. And I also do a digital show through Spotify called Scoopy Sources through the Spotify Live app. And then I also do some sports gambling stuff. I have a partnership with Bovada where I produce original content over there. So constantly stuff moving and grooving there through Bally, Scoopy Radio, Spotify Live, as well as Bovada.
And I'm not gonna lie, when I was watching, you know, doing my due diligence for this, I was very taken at your skill as an interviewer. So I'm curious if you could give me a tip, not for me personally, but for anybody on how to be a better interviewer. or me personally, if you peep something.
Just the research and just the relatability. I think that's the biggest thing, and just being yourself.
So, and please be brutally honest. How am I doing with the relatability?
You killing it, brother. You killing it. I like talking to you.
Oh my man, I appreciate that. I'm trying to stutter less and shit. I don't know if there's really help for that, but yeah. Other than that, I feel pretty good. Well, I mean, shoot. Thanks for the kind words. Thank you so much for your time. I'd love to check back in with you and talk more about the season, maybe around the All-Star game or something. Or
let's do it.
Or if you got time.
Let's do it. I'm with it.
My man. Well, thank you very much. This has been a treat. Like I said, it's always a joy to talk NBA. But when I'm getting Harlem stories and Rod Strickland stories, I love it. So again, not to be repetitive, but thank you so much,
brother. Thank you for the opportunity to be myself for real.
Oh, no doubt, and anytime. And see, I need to improve on ending these things. That's the thing. I'll give me some advice on that. Like how do you smoothly end it?
Be you. Think about that pretty girl you trying to holler at. Be smooth.
Hey, wise words. Thank you so much, and you have a good night.
You too, my brother. Thank you.
No doubt. Take it light.